But we'll go ahead and kick off our introduction to Eric. And Eric is in the Colorado area and has some active projects going on. And so we're excited to meet Eric. And Eric, why don't you go ahead and give us a little bit of introduction to yourself and we can end up with the project that you're working on. But one thing I like to start with is what's your origin story? If you were a superhero, how did you discover this? So how did you first go down the rabbit hole? I know many people have different motivations and how they found out about it. Tell us about yours.
Yeah. I definitely think that everybody has their own unique origin story, which is really special in this industry. So mine actually comes from my grandmother. She, in 2015, went over to Laos and Cambodia, and not on a trip geared towards hempcrete, but she came back with stories of hempcrete buildings in Southeast Asia that have been standing for several hundred years.
Oh, nice.
That people have been building with and telling her about. And so it piqued her interest while she was there. Like, what's this building over here? Because she lives in Santa Fe, so she's used to the Adobe style buildings. So when she saw the it's kind of same material aesthetic, she inquired on it and learned that it was hempcrete. And so when she came back to the United States, then she told me about hempcrete as a viable building material, and just how special this for the construction industry is, and the wider industry as a whole. And so from there, it piqued my interest because I've kind of loved and admired my grandmother all my life. And so whenever she has an idea, I like to dive in as well. So fast
Now,
forward.
what year was this?
2015.
Okay, so there had been, I know what prompted me was the Farm Bill in 2018. And then I think it was 2014, it was legal for, trial plots and things like that. But the door hadn't been blown off the hinges yet. So you're sitting in 2015, Grandma got back. I always introduce hempcrete and hemp lime as a modern twist on an ancient technology. I'm looking forward to Grandma's stories on here. What did she tell you? How did that come about? And you said some of these projects were hundreds of years old. That's fascinating.
Yeah, so some of the locals that she was talking to had mentioned that the life and the duration of hempcrete buildings there were hundreds of years old. They didn't say exactly how old, but it's rare to find buildings nowadays in United States and Europe where they have been around, unless they're from the ancient Roman period or they're made of stone or something. But so that is what really kind of got me excited. So then I just, for a few years, was just peripherally involved in it, sort of like paying attention to it on social media channels. And then in 2018, I decided to look into it when I moved from Wisconsin, which is where I am from originally. Went from Wisconsin over to Colorado, and that's when I decided to kind of take control into my own hands and look into it. And the only Google search that came up with hemp houses was John Patterson's tiny hemp houses in Fort Collins. And he was doing a workshop up there in September of 2018. And so my dad and I got involved because I told my dad about this because he's an architect. And so he's been building with all sorts of materials his entire life, and he's in his 60s now. So he thought it was interesting as well. So we drive up to Fort Collins from Denver and go into this workshop for 2 or 3 days and meet some people in the field. And so that's really where I started getting a hands-on experience with hempcrete. And from there, it kind of took off. And I started getting involved in some local channels around hempcrete, seeing who are the players in Colorado specifically that were building with it. And then I right when COVID happened, sorry, I can kind of go on. It's a long origin story, but
No, it's a good one. Now, is Grandma your mom's mom or your dad's mom? Because you
my
said your
mom,
dad's in. Okay, mom's mom. Okay.
yeah. Which is, my dad's side of the family is big. They're big in farming. So I think way back when they were growing with hemp, way on his side of the family. But my mom's side, she's more of a businesswoman. So she looks at something as a business opportunity. And so that's why hempcrete sort of piqued her interest. But anyways.
Now, was this kind of like at Thanksgiving dinner? It was like, what's little Eric up to? Or, was there a concern, or did they just jump in and like the idea and love what they heard?
I think they love what they heard because to me, if hempcrete as a opportunity or education is given to the right person, it really can kind of inspire people that are interested in natural alternatives into healthy I mean, going from agriculture to construction to consumables, it's all over the place. So it can really, every time I talk about hempcrete, people's eyes light up, or just hemp in general that have never been exposed to it. So it definitely, it happened to me, and I think it's now having a ripple effect over time. So
So
um,
now, at this time, were you in the biz as far as trades or building, or what were you active in, and how did that transition over into uh, being crazy enough to actually give it a go?
that's a great question. That's kind of the natural progression of my story. So I wasn't working in blue collar anything. I was working in events and nonprofits in Denver, TEDx Mile High. So I was doing a lot of TED Talks coordination for a while. And then when COVID happened, events took a nosedive, and all of a sudden, no one was putting on in-person events anymore. And so a lot of people in our industry lost their jobs, including me. And that's when I decided, okay, now it's time to get serious and start learning carpentry, construction, how to build something, how to use power tools, how to actually make this come to fruition, and not just kind of have it live in my memory and as a pipe dream. So I started working for a manufacturing company that did floors and walls and kind of learning framing and construction. Then I started working for a general contractor. So I started learning remodeling and renovations, all the while having this kind of through line curiosity around green building and sustainable alternatives, and trying to incorporate hempcrete into these buildings. And what I noticed is that the established general contractors are very difficult to convince to try to use an alternative material.
Yeah,
And I thought,
anything.
oh yeah, and that's right. That's not just hempcrete. And I thought, I was like, I'm coming to you with this awesome idea, and they would jump on it, and they never did. They thought it was interesting, but it was not worth kind of taking on hempcrete building projects. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to do this on my own. And so that took about 3 years of learning construction in general. And then opportunities started coming up because I stayed active in the hemp building community, where I met Phelan Dalton, who runs Hemp Building Co. And he was looking for some extra hands needed on certain builds. And so that's when I helped out with the house in Howard, Colorado, with Talus and Larry. And then I helped Phelan over at the Levada project when they were building the garage. So this was all the summer of 2022. So that's when I really actually got some hands-on building experience working with Phelan and some other hempcrete builders in the state. And so that's where it really kind of took off. But that said, it never got me to a point where I could live off the money earned from hempcrete builds. And so I kept going, working for general contractors just to keep the lights on and pay the bills and keep the hempcrete journey and dream alive, which kind of takes me all the way till today, where my dad and I kind of work in sync because he's an independent architect. And so he's working right now with a customer that came through my website named Darren Strauss up in Littleton, Colorado, who wants to build a hemp house. And it's really cool the way that my dad designed it. It's barrel roof, 12-inch thick walls. It's split level with a garage, main floor. And so we're right now kind of in the midst of designing, and tomorrow I'm actually going up there to meet with the customer and kind of talk through design ideas and kind of what it's going to take from a general contractor perspective.
So this was the first project that was like yours, to where this is the genesis. Because I know a lot of folks that are coming into the community here, they're either looking to build their own house or they're looking to have a career path just like what you were doing. And so I always like to put a laser focus on what was that first moment where you saw that seed sprout and the green come up out of the ground. What was the genesis of the project? And you were saying you'd worked on a couple of other projects with one of the other contributors here, Phelan, and then you got some builds under your belt, some time on, and then you knew the rhythm of the job site, and you knew some of the design features on how to plug them in just by virtue of working on it. And then I can't stress how much people learn about design just by getting on a job site. But so this first potential client that came in, before they came in, did you say that was through kind of a combined active networking of you, your dad, and just out in the space, or how did that come to fruition? So for those who either want to build a house, they know how to find people, and for those who want to find clients, they know how to find clients.
So this lead in particular came through my website directly. And so I think they found me just as like a Google search. And so I popped up as one
Nice.
of the hempcrete builders in Denver. But I will say that it is a difficult journey to transfer from a non-construction field into hempcrete. And so that's why I kind of took up learning carpentry, learning construction, everything that I've been working in, and to kind of like pay the bills is in service to the hempcrete building dream. And so it's not an easy progression into that, because a lot of people think they can kind of jump into the hemp building world, but there's a lot of skills that take place. And then there's building codes and project management and dealing with subcontractors. And so Phelan is, for instance, is a mentor in many ways, but he's kind of operating like a subcontractor, whereas I want to be the general contractor and own every piece to building a home. And to become a general contractor takes a lot of years of knowledge. And I'm working off like 4 or 5 years. And these guys sometimes have 20, 30 years of construction background. So it's a big step into that direction. And so there's going to be a lot of missteps along the way. And, you're going to fail a few times, but to me, it's all in service of this dream of building hempcrete. And it's a slow crawl, but I think if me personally, I feel very inspired every day when people like you are kind of keeping the network alive and thriving and growing. And it's really inspiring to see that. And so even over the years, the energy doesn't really die down. It's still there, whether it's dormant or it's very much intense and alive. That's what excites me the most about the future. And so that's why I'm kind of staying true to my values and working towards this dream.
Nice, nice. Well, I love it how you've got the wisdom to have the bill paying job contribute to the learning. And so many people, you can work to earn or you can work to learn, but if you do both, man, that's a powerful step forward. And so good on you for doing that and then having the wisdom to make all that happen. Now, tell us about the initial conversation and dialogue, kind of from the viewpoint of what were some of the questions, concerns, motivations that this you're starting to see from people who are reaching out to you. What's that initial conversation look like, and how does it go from a phone call or a message on your website to a consultation to moving forward? What are some of those first steps that you'd like to share with folks about how they can navigate those?
Yeah, that's an amazing question, and one that informs my business in many ways. Is that the clientele tends to be people that are wanting to build a home, but not only just any home. They want to build a home that's healthy, sustainable, durable, fireproof. They want to build a home that is going to be a place that will last, and it will reduce their energy bills long term. And so they just, whether they're in their own kind of bubble of learning when it comes to green building and passive solar homes and T-stud framing, and there's all sorts of kinds of like green building alternatives. Hempcrete just tends to be the one that to me is the most magical and the most what's the word, impressive, but also durable. It actually works, and it'll last, and it'll stay kind of the test of time. And so those customers, I think, when they come are searching themselves through whatever channels it might be, a Google search or the network as a whole, they're interested in building to all those parameters that I mentioned before, green alternatives, organic, kind of things that will last. And so that is a
It checks
growing
all the check
population.
boxes for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And so it's a growing population, which is great. And conversely, having worked in construction in Denver, I also get to see the negative parts of all the waste, all the materials, the VOCs that come from the drywall and the fiberglass insulation. So I got to see all the negative parts, and so that helps inform what I want to do with hempcrete and do it right. And so I'm guessing, actually, the guy, the client that I'm working with, Darren, he says that he just doesn't want a home that's dependent on fossil fuels, dependent on electrical grid. He wants something that's totally sustainable, self-sufficient, and hempcrete just is kind of the best use of that. But it's not just going to be hempcrete. We're talking about doing radiant floors, solar panels on the roof, gray water systems. There's all these other building methods that we're looking at for this. So it doesn't stop just at hempcrete. So that's one way that the clientele is kind of growing in that aspect.
And so now,
can I ask?
Yeah, go ahead, Gene.
I used to work in the news business and I covered Littleton. And Littleton is really interesting because there's Littleton, the city, and then there's a sort of unincorporated area that's also called Littleton, that's both in Adams County and in Jefferson County. So can you talk a little bit about this lot where you're going to be building, and if it's, are you in an unincorporated area? Are you within this, like, how is your dealing with the building departments going, and which county is it?
So it's in Jefferson County, and it's in the mountains. So it's not in like the Littleton area on the Front Range. It's up in the mountains. So it's just past Deer Creek Valley Ranch. So it's that south
Okay.
of Red Rocks, and it's up in the mountains. It's maybe 45 minutes from here where I am in Lakewood. The building department is challenging because there's a lot of permits that we're going to have to deal with that my dad and I are working with, and he's very familiar with the permits situation. And typically to go from permit to approved takes about 3 to 6 months, depending on a variety of factors. But that's going to be the biggest challenge working as a general contractor, because most general contractors in Denver will kind of take on that and will hire someone like Phelan to kind of come in and subcontract out the hempcrete. So he just comes in, installs, and leaves. Whereas what I'm doing is a much longer, more arduous process, dealing with the building department and permits and codes. But luckily, there's a lot more ammo in this, or the what's the phrase? Basically, with the passing of the building codes and the new residential ICC requirements with hempcrete, I think the leg to stand on is getting taller. It's the best way I can put it.
Yeah, you tell that there are 4 dwellings in Larimer County made of hempcrete that they've approved. So,
okay. Yeah.
There are, we have them here. So, a lot of this stuff is like, for building departments, it's like, well, if someone else did it, maybe it's okay, but I'm not going to be the first one.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so there are some building departments that are more lenient than others. There are some inspectors that are more lenient than others. So that's just all part of the general contract process. And so I don't expect it to be easy, but in order to kind of to maximize and grow, we're just going to have to kind of deal with it and roll with the punches and educate building departments on this material. So it's going to be an ongoing battle.
Yeah. So what's the status right now, and then what's your timetable for moving forward on this project?
So we have
the design phase or permitting.
Yep, designs are nearly complete. I think he's working on elevation designs right now, but he has floor layout. Next is kind of going through permits and getting the permits approved, which is going to be probably 1 to 2 month process, and then we could probably break ground in June or July is the goal.
Nice.
That's ambitious. What kind of is our plan B is that if it gets delayed until the end of the summer, then we're probably going to pour foundation. We might frame. I'd probably hold off framing because in order to pour the hempcrete, we need curing times of 1 to 2 months before we can put on the finished plaster. But we could finish setting the hempcrete by October and then work on the interior and then do the exterior in the spring of 2025. So I'm working through timelines in my head, thinking of collaborating with Dave Kaplan up in Fort Collins, who runs Elevated Design Build, who's familiar with hempcrete building, but he does timber frame construction and is kind of well versed in this. So anyways, it's going to be
he was going to do a project here in Livermore, and then the client freaked out and said, no, we just want stone, right?
Yep. So we quoted that project, and they just wanted to go with the conventional materials. So, and that's another part of the journey, is that there are some clients that are so gung-ho hardcore about hempcrete that they're willing to kind of pay the slightly higher cost versus people that are sort of like, oh, that'd be nice to have an alternative. And then they don't kind of commit to it. So that was the customer that we were dealing with in Livermore, but it happens. It's part of the construction journey.
Yeah, I like seeing the supply chains mature, especially because there's, I've talked to a number of folks that were, all on board, and then they just got a little skittish because they started checking on things, and, we're sure that we can go to Home Depot or the lumber yard and get lumber tomorrow, today, whenever, but we're not sure that we'll be able to get all the supplies. And so now that supply chains are maturing, that concern is definitely waning. I wanted to go back just a hair, and you talked about this collaboration between several different points of view, and it's something that we go over quite a bit, and we really like to give pause to is the initial collaboration between the design, and that can either be the architect and or the engineer, maybe the GC's in on that as well, but the design effort collaborating with the tradespeople that are going to be coming in and actually doing the work, whether it's the framer, the hempcrete subcontractor, and whatnot. Is that type of a conversation taking place? If so, who initiated it? How is that? How are you facilitating that? Because I know one of the things that I've found is that any one of those individuals can take the deal, and so and so you kind of have to have expectations to where everybody is uh, on board for something to be a little bit difficult, but they've got the vision of it being worthwhile. Tell us about your role facilitating that and participating in it, because you've got a couple of different viewpoints that you're coming in it from, sub and GC and all of that. And I didn't know if you were going to be a subcontractor on this project for those disciplines.
Yeah, that's a tough question. I think the easiest and quickest way to answer is setting expectations correctly with customers, because the projects that I worked with Phelan Dalton on, like the Howard project and the Veda, the general contractors were the homeowners. The homeowners sort of did their own build themselves, managed the project from start to finish. The subcontractors, it was very challenging for them, and I don't blame them one bit. It's a lot of moving pieces. There's a lot of codes that you have to work with. So working with customers that want to hire a general contractor to do it, you have got to manage and set expectations well in the beginning, because if you don't, you're going to upset a lot of people. And with a building material like hempcrete, we've seen it built, we've seen its benefits. So, and most customers know that from the start, but they might not know the labor intensive part of it, that it takes a while to kind of pour these walls. They might not know that you got to put in your conduit beforehand, your plumbing, you got to have all this done ahead of time. And the sequence is going to have to be perfect in order for this home to be built and not have all these delays and setbacks, which people tend to experience with general contractors and conventional construction. So setting expectations correctly with the homeowner and the trade partners that are now building or being involved in a build that is with hempcrete and alternative construction methods. So that no one's kind of coming in with questions like, "Oh, what's going on here? Why wasn't this communicated?" So that's my short half/long answer.
Yeah, so focus on the benefits that are the most key to them, set and manage expectations. And so that's a great way to bring a summary to that. And then we're definitely not just tradespeople, but we're relationship management facilitators along the other side, because everybody's got a lot of different passions. It's not just the building material selection. There's a lot more motivation to it. So you've got this one project here. You've got the website up, and then I like to stress the importance of, you and I were talking about each other before we jumped on, the interview here about, hey, we checked each other out, made sure we kind of knew who we were talking to beforehand, but you present yourself as a professional. You go out and you put a flag in the ground. Tell us about that, as far as what was your process to where you were like, okay, I need to define myself, and then I need to make that flag, and then I need to stick it in the ground, and then that's what I'll move forward. What was that like when you were putting that together, as far as what vibe you would throw out to the universe?
Yeah, I hit a lot of roadblocks early on because I didn't have the skill set to match what I wanted to do. And so I needed to learn kind of, one, hempcrete installations, two, general carpentry and construction, and three, managing projects. And so in order to learn those skills, it took a long time, and it took kind of more strategic planning on what my jobs were going to be. But all of that is, like I said earlier, in service to the hempcrete install, because if I show up and like I did early on and try to explain what a build's going to be like without actually knowing how it's going to be, it's going to be challenging, and people are going to kind of see that as unprofessional. And so I wanted to be knowledgeable when talking to people. And so that's where my journey kind of went left and then right and then up and then down. And so it takes a while to approach those conversations with confidence when you're trying to sell projects, talk to customers, be professional, and not kind of be an imposter. There will be things that you don't know, but communicating honestly is already loads better than most contractors and subcontractors. So I think I'd be curious, the people on this call, if someone's already involved in construction and carpentry, or if they're wanting to build it and they don't want to learn that, they just kind of want to put the trust in somebody who's an expert in it. What do you anticipate with the group in this call? Will be like a split of people who want to build their own house versus people that want to hire someone to build it? What's the grouping? Both?
Yeah, all of the above. And then
Some of the folks that took the pro class are actually what Cameron calls motivated owner builders, right? They want to know like all the, carbon stuff and all the different materials they can use on the entire thing. Then we have people, it's about 50-50 really, that are taking the pro versus the homeowner. And the homeowner, some of them, have a decision to, they have a dream to do it. And they're a little bit, some are further ahead than others. We do have 3 people who actually are breaking ground and pretty far ahead on their project. So that's exciting to us. And we're able to tell them, here are the suppliers for herd that we use. Here are the pozzolans that these builders use. This is the system that we use. We haven't asked you, what is your hemp application system? Are you doing cast in place? Are you doing spray panel block?
Yeah, I prefer the cast in place method. I know it's very labor intensive, but I think, given my experience with working with cast in place, that monolithic seal around a house is by far the most sustainable, and
the performance is fantastic.
Yeah, the performance is better because even with blocks, the mortar lines are thermal bridges between each block. And so even though it's much better than conventional, I still see the diminished value of insulation with just in the mortar line between blocks. And I'm still open-minded around it. I haven't been on a build with blocks yet. I know Phelan is kind of building into that, and I'll be eager to see how that goes. But the cast in place method of just the efficiency, kind of the assembly line, can be applied to that. But it is labor intensive, and it tends to be best on 1-story units. If it was a 2-story unit, I probably would go with a blocks or something that's a little bit more efficient. Because when we built that Howard house and we did the cast in place, we poured the back wall, but the second floor was still blowing in the wind, and it actually put stress on the lower, and it cracked some of the hempcrete, and we had to go back and repair that. And so little things that you kind of pick up along the way. Each project, you learn something that helps inform the next. So, but to answer your question, cast in place for sure.
Nice.
Yeah, there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen that are developing the different ones like that, and so I'm eager to see what comes down the pike. And so, well, I tell you what, how can people best find out about you? We've talked to a lot of folks that they're like, hey, just call. Some people are like, don't call, email, and so some people have a preference on LinkedIn versus Instagram on throwing their stuff out there. Tell us how your ideal customer and your ideal relationship would reach out to you.
My preference would probably begin with email and then go from email to a phone call, I would say. I do have an Instagram where some people will send inquiries through there, but it's a little bit chaotic on some of the messaging on Instagram. So I like to keep it clean on email, but go from email to a phone call to sort of discuss things. And then if it moves from the phone call, I direct them to my dad, who then starts the designs with them. So my dad is an expert architect. He's really talented, and he'll kind of walk them through what their vision is for their hempcrete home, which is exactly what happened with Darren, this guy in Littleton. And then from there, my dad then kind of slingshots it back to me, and then I start the building process. So we're kind of a tag team duo.
The website is healthyhemphomes.org.
Correct.
Yeah, what a fantastic combination on the design and the execution phase of things on there. So, Any other last thoughts about what your objectives are? You've got some projects coming up. Are you looking to develop on anything on your own, or just take on clients? What's your ideal business model over the next um, short and long term? Are building out more on the contracting side, or doing any type of development?
Yeah, I think it's important to emphasize that I am not an expert in this, that I'm still kind of a work in progress, my own business included, and my own skill building. I'm 29 years old. I'm still young in the construction world. So I see it as just, to me, it's the beginning. And so I'm setting expectations for myself. Even though I have a few years of building experience, it's still, in the grand scheme of my professional life, I see it as really just the beginning. And so in the short term, my focus is on building out my general contractor's license, getting insurances, getting set up for success, and then working through this project with Darren, demonstrating to myself and to others that it is possible to GC a project, a hempcrete home, from start to finish, and not rely on the homeowner, who is in essence the GC. Because I don't think that's a sustainable model for growth for the hempcrete building world, is to rely on the homeowner to be his own GC, his or her.
Right.
So yeah, starting with building out the general contractor's license, and then working on my skills and growing the business, just as any other entrepreneur. It's going to be a long, fruitful process, and I'm excited for it. But one thing that came to mind when you were talking is that when I started this journey, I thought that it would be easier to convince established GCs, established builders, that hempcrete is the path forward. I thought that was the easiest way, because they had already, the tools, the years of experience. But what I found out is that that's not actually the case, is that a lot of GCs, even if they're eager on sustainability, they're not willing to sort of take on the innovative materials. So it has to sort of come from grassroots, and people that don't even know how to use a power drill sometimes are the people who are the big change makers in the industry. So yeah, that was just one piece of knowledge in the short time that I've been involved in this industry, is that I've seen it.
It's not
Isn't
as
that
easy
odd?
as you think to sell a car to somebody with a horse.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's
Well,
odd.
great. Well, we're looking forward to seeing what works with you, and then following along, and then having you on here as a contributor. And so, thanks for joining us. And we'll be on the sideline cheering for you and supporting you any way we can.
Can you see the slideshow?
Yep.
Perfect. It's full screen too. So yeah,
Okay.
that's great.
Okay.
Fantastic.
These are just some of the photos. My journey, first experience with
Oh,
hempcrete,
that's
working with.
Fort Collins, isn't it? What do you call that? The Quonset hut.
Yep, the Quonset hut with John Patterson. So this was the first experience I had with hempcrete, which was a lot of fun. Then I got trained with Hempitecture in June of 2020, which was right at the peak of the pandemic.
Oh yeah.
Then I was working. This is when I first started being a carpenter, building with this middle picture is the solar decathlon house in Fraser, Colorado. So this won an award that I helped build and frame. It was built by CU Boulder students, or I should say coordinated, and then they subcontracted out to us. And so these walls are made with lamb's wool. It's passive solar, so it's very eco-friendly. So this is my first sort of experience, non-hempcrete related. And then I was working in the same job, but this is the warehouse where we build wall panels. I realize
I've got a quick question for you. Did y'all go through the accolade process for any of the passive solar, or any of those type of, I don't know if it's an award or an accolade, but you got to jump through hula hoops to get it. Did y'all do that?
No, and I saw it. And the name of the company it's in Fort Collins. I think actually it's nationwide, but they do it in Fort Collins. I forget the name of the company. I was interested in doing it because it is kind of in the same realm. When we built the Howard House, that was passive solar, and it's just a really cool home. But I'm thinking of kind of extending. It's a really expensive program, but those accolades are really useful from what I've heard.
Yeah, not as useful as payment, but
Yep, right.
they lead to payment. Yeah.
But anyways, yeah. And then moving on, this is the next carpentry job, which is remodeling and framing houses on site. This is a company called Sustainable Design Build in Denver. This was the Howard Hemp House in July 22. Probably the coolest house I've ever worked on in my life. It was beautiful.
Really tall.
Really
I mean,
tall. So this
looks
is the
like it
two.
was scary to climb all the way up there.
Yeah, right here, that's Talus up there. That's the homeowner who's also the GC. But they use these pump jacks right here to get us all the way to the
Yep.
top, and it just was one of the coolest builds. I wish I could do that again over and over again. This one was the Levada project. This one was a lot of fun, a bit smaller. We did it in 9 days, and we used like a local crew that helped us and taught them hempcrete building. This is the build that's upcoming that my dad has some like preliminary designs.
That looks super.
Nice. I like that barrel roof.
Yep. So that's the barrel roof. That's why I wanted to use Dave Kaplan in Fort Collins with the timber framing experience to make these logs and the barrel roof work.
What's the roof insulation material?
Hempcrete. That's the goal.
Nice.
Probably do like 1/4-inch plywood underneath, and then pour the cavity with hempcrete, and it's like a cast in place.
Nice. Nice. Are y'all going to pull that plywood down and plaster over it then, or?
Probably. That way you can preserve the look of the logs inside, and it'll just be like a interior plaster between.
Nice, nice. Good on you for using that in the roof.
Yeah, it's gonna, and we're gonna talk about the designs more with the client tomorrow. But this is a view from the side, and I think that's it. And then I just wanted to leave question and answer. But does this kind of fit the expectation?
Yeah.
Hell yeah, that's sexy. I like that. What's your roofing material?
Not sure yet. That's why we're going to work with. I don't want to go slate and I don't want to go shingles, but it's going to be hard to do a metal roof on barrel. So we're going to have to think outside the box with that customer, because they want to do some water collection into rain barrels or possibly like an underground tank for water. So it's going to be a fun.
A tile or slate would be sexy if they can swing it, but that takes some stroke.
Yep. So, and that is yet to be seen. They might change their mind last minute. So we'll talk to them tomorrow, and I might have a different answer for you.
A lot happens in the presence of sticker shock.
Right.
So, yeah.
Wow, this is super exciting, Eric. And I hope, I think we should write about this project too. When you're starting to break ground, let's do an article about it in Hemp Build Mag, because I really want to get the voice of the homeowner in there, and